In this session, I'm going to tell you how to collect loot from the enemy. For example, I kill lots and they drop loot. Okay, to create the loot system, as you know, the enemy should die and some random objects would appear and instantiate it. So we have to go to the player health. I mean enemy health. Why I always mix them up? Enemy health and death. Okay, if you die, spawn loot. And we'll have a method for that. Private void spawn loot. Okay, so let me first here it receives a list of items. So here is a list of game objects and call them loots. And we can go into inspector and add as any number of items we want to add. Okay. And then we come in here. We don't want to say, okay, instantiate, for example, all of them or some of them. We want to randomly select something from them and also randomly place them in the scene when enemy dies. Here, we want to say, okay, and loot amount. Okay, what is the number of the loot? So say something randomly that range. For example, from 0 to 3, select a number. For example, once the enemy might give 2 loots or maybe 1 loot. So every time it is randomly a number between 0, these two numbers generated. Now as we have a list, so you say for just write 4 and press double tap. INT, the index starts from 0, from, what was the name? Loots dot count I++. For example, if it is the loot amount is 2, then for 2 times this is iterated and 2 times it is performed. And here I want to say, okay, which game object do you want to bring here? So I say game object go, and then I say from the loot list, I don't say bring index of 0. Okay, bring for example 2 or 3 of this loot. I want us to randomly it select something from the list. Not only the amount of the loot, but also which loot. Both of them should be random. So for that I say random.range, and for example I say from 0, just say loot amount that count. Loot amount, okay. Loot amount, not the list, because we want to, yes, if you want all of the list to be, for example, you have 5 things on 5 times, if we perform, yes, you wrote that, but you want this number, so you say is less than this number. For example, the result is 1, so just once it will be executed. And now, okay, loot, for example, from the index of 0 to everything that it has, which is the loot.count. And I think I'll close that. Okay, what to do? Instantiate. Yes, instantiate them, but instantiate the geo. But I want to also make the placement of the loads to be random. So vector 3, random position, and yes, transform dot position. It means a placement that the the enemy dies. Also, new vectors 3. For that, for the X, I say random dot range. Okay, from where to where, I say -1. I mean that whenever the enemy dies, for example, -1 of that, and also one, for example, 1 meter away from the enemy dead place, spell that. And for the Y, also random that range. So this could be a number between zero. I don't want that it go below the ground. So I think 0 or this and this is good. What's oh, 1 and for example 2. And for the Z 0 because it is 2D. And then instantiate, yeah, geo in a random place without any, uh, rotation. So let's say there's the code we compile. So let's go to enemy prefab because I want to change all the enemies. Enemy. You see, there's a loot. So what is the loot? These three. You can select this to lock it and select all of them and drag and drop it here. And I also want the coin. Where is the coin? The coin is not as a prefab. So I bring it here. And then again, I go to enemy and add the coin as well. All right. And now let's go to other enemy. We had different enemies. I do the same thing and then I'll return. Make sure that you put the code above the destroy because the sequence is important. If something get destroyed, then nothing get happen after that. Okay, let's play. Let's see. It was not there. I don't know. Let me check. I think it was found. Let me do that. Yes, this is a found, but this is very ugly. I want that. For example, it collides with the ground and somehow has a gravity, and we can make that as well. There are different ways that you can do that. For example, you say, okay, when it is instantiated, add a rigid body and make the trigger, for example, add another collider. You can do this by code, but as I really want to change even the shape of that, for example, a smaller coin as a loot, and this bigger coin as something that is collectible here. Also for the potions. So I go to prefab, loot, I bring them here, and then prefab unpack completely. I make them a little bit smaller, and let's see what do we have here. And I make them a little bit, change their color. For example, oh, that's ugly. Something like that. Something that is that I can recognize it from the ordinary loot that is just here, and make this a little bit like this. I think this is good, and I make it a little bit larger. But as it has the animation, I think that it returns to that. Yes. So that's why it's very. If I had the placeholder coin holder, then that would be better. So I could just resize that. So okay, I cannot resize this, but um, but I can do this for them because they have a holder. Okay, imagine that this is like this, and I call them loot, and I want to give them a rigid body, 2D, and also a they have a collider, but it is triggered. If I have a rigid body and the collider is triggered, then it will pass through the ground and fall down. So I give them another collider. For example, capsule collider 2D. Yes, they can have two colliders. Capsule, no. Circle. For example, one of them is triggered and one of them is not. That's fine. So they are like this. So this collider doesn't allow that this pass through the earth, and this collider that is triggered is responsible for untrigger of the player. That, for example, we say if untrigger enter, then collect that. So I add them also here, and I go to enemy and destroy the loot and bring the loots that I have added here. Is this. Just like that and drag and drop them here. So do this for all the other enemies and then I continue. Let me show you something. Okay, I killed them. She drops the loot, but I cannot take that. And also he didn't drop anything. So I make at least yes, I should change the 0 in random range just to actually drop something. Okay, I cannot pick up them because the collider. Let me show you here. You have to be very careful. That trigger collider should be bigger than this collider. So, which one is which one? Yes, do you see that? If I deactivate that, I know that which one is that. Hmm. Yes. And also correct them. And I want that at least it give me one loot, so they don't be very stingy. 7 and 5, and so it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and and also here loots. Yeah, it has index that is different from this index of the list, but here it is a number, and also the x value make it a little bit more. I'll test that just to see what happens. But then go and fix. I fix the colliders and then I'll return. Okay, let me delete these things and see what happens. Okay, something fell down from her. I don't know if you saw that. Let me try to kill it from distance. Yes, this and this. But if you're too close to that, you pick up as soon as you're very close to the enemy. So you don't know if it had dropped anything. So it's better that um, I make a delay between when it is spawned and the time that I can collect that. For example, after 1 second that is instantiated, I am allowed to pick up that. So the player can see something that has been instantiated and then it is picked. Otherwise, when it is instantiated, the player pick it up as soon as possible and you don't even know if there were any loots at all. So for that, let's go to here and make a quarantine to make a pause. In order to do that, I have several ways. One of them is that um, when these are instantiated, let me delete this thing. This is the ordinary pickup. Oh, 23 coin. Okay. One of them is that when it is instantiated, I deactivate this collider so it falls down. The players see how many loots have been produced and which one of them, and then after a short delay, I just activate it again. So it is this, and I make it this, so the player can pick up them. And this happened only in the very short time. For example, 0.1 second, not long. So let's go to the code, and here I say game object geo created, and then I want to get a collider about collider 2D collider. So it doesn't mean just any kind of collider that it has. It is circle, it is box collider, it doesn't matter. Then I say this that get component. Oh, what is that? Get component collider 2D. All right. Then after I get that, I set the collider that is trigger to false. Then after a short delay, I want to return that. And I say, as I want to, after a pause, I return this again to true. As we have delay, then we use enumerator. Press private enumerator. For example, reset collider. Okay, which collider? Because if we want to do that, then it's better that we pass the parameter here as the collider to the collide. For example, the collider, and also a delay, float delay. You could directly say that there, but I want to show you all the possible ways and to be familiar with passing the parameters. I can say yield, return, new, wait for a second, yes, delay. And then after that, I say, okay, collider that is trigger is true. And here, start quarantine. Which one? This one. Pass the parameters. Okay, it needs a collider. Which collider? This collider. And the delay would be 0.1 f, and close that. So let's test it out, and I think this is good. So let me keep that. You see, I cannot pick up them until that amount of time has been passed.